Let's dive right into this explainer. We're going to break down how simple, catchy children's melodies are actually utilized to instill complex daily routines and core religious values. When we think of nursery rhymes, we usually just picture simple entertainment to keep kids occupied, right? But as we analyze our source material today, we are literally going to see a masterclass in early childhood pedagogy. Toddlers' brains are incredibly plastic, and music, well, it's a tool that bypasses resistance entirely, embedding information directly into those developing neural pathways. We're going to look at how rhythmic repetition doesn't just teach kids a fun tune, but actually constructs their entire framework for daily habits, social interactions, and even lifelong spiritual devotion. To do that, we'll be deconstructing our source material through 6 thematic pillars: adapting a global classic, personal hygiene and routines, family and social harmony, the language of faith, integrating daily spiritual practices, and finally, the power of devotional chants. Section 1. Adapting a global classic. Flipping the narrative. Now, what is really fascinating here is how the classic nursery rhyme about sneaking sugar, you probably know it as Johnny, Johnny, Yes, Papa, is completely transformed. In the original version, the child gets caught lying, making the whole song essentially a game of deception. But our source material totally flips the script. It transforms the tune into a celebration of honesty with a character named Hamza. The parent asks, "Telling truth?" And Hamza confidently replies, "Yes, Baba." The psychological benefit of this tweak is absolutely massive. Instead of a story about deception and punishing a lie, the exact same familiar cadence is used to actively model desired behavior. It rewards honesty right from the very first beat. It's teaching the child exactly what to do rather than what not to do. Moving right along to Section 2, personal hygiene and routines, the daily steps. This is where the methodology gets really practical. Notice how actions like brushed your teeth and washed your face flow seamlessly right into made voodoo and time for prayer. By placing mundane, hygienic chores on the exact same melodic level as spiritual rituals, the song completely normalizes religious practice. It's basically telling the child that preparing for prayer is just as standard, just as fundamental to your daily routine as brushing your teeth in the morning. From a developmental standpoint, this is brilliant. Why? Because it prevents religious duties from feeling like a heavy, separate, or tedious chore later in life. It's just an integrated, totally normal part of getting up and existing in the world. This brings us to Section 3, family and social harmony, building character. Because a child doesn't live in a vacuum, right? Once they've mastered self-regulation through basic hygiene, the source material pushes outward to emphasize social regulation within the family. It actively models these interactions, showing characters like Zoya and Mariam helping their mom, cleaning their rooms, and sharing toys. It lays out a highly specific behavioral blueprint for domestic life. And consider the line, "said salam with a smile." Attaching a smile to the greeting is absolutely crucial pedagogically. It teaches emotional intelligence right alongside the physical action. It's not just about reciting a rote greeting. The disposition behind the action matters just as much. You're fostering warmth, empathy, and genuine connection within the home. And the true brilliance here is how this social harmony is explicitly linked to positive reinforcement. When Mariam shares her toys or helps her sister out, she isn't just checking off a chore. She gets hit with enthusiastic validation, like, "You're the best sister," or "You're the best daughters." This creates such a powerful psychological link for the child between pro-social behavior and deep emotional security. They quickly learn that being helpful and kind is the direct pathway to receiving parental affection and feeling truly valued. Let's shift gears to Section 4, the language of faith, seamless vocabulary. Integrated right alongside these mundane tasks is a rich situational vocabulary of faith. The song doesn't stop everything to deliver a heavy theology lesson. It just weaves the language directly into the child's actions. Take the foundational phrase, Bismillah. It's introduced not as some complex theological concept, but simply as the practical starting line for literally any activity. Before Hamza even begins telling the truth or doing his chores, he says Bismillah. It teaches the listener that invoking this phrase is how you turn the ignition key on your day. Pedagogically, this effectively erases the barrier between the secular and the sacred. Suddenly, sweeping the floor isn't just a physical action anymore, it's an act of mindfulness. Similarly, Alhamdulillah is consistently tied to the completion of a task. Hamza finishes his food, Alhamdulillah. Zoya washes her face, Alhamdulillah. It cements this habit of giving thanks for daily provisions. It creates a completely natural bookend. You start with Bismillah, you finish with Alhamdulillah. It frames the most basic elements of survival, like eating and staying clean,
through a lens of continuous gratitude. And the role of the parents here is fascinating. Instead of a simple good job, the parents deploy mashallah as a recurring form of positive reinforcement. When the parent figure says mashallah, they are simultaneously validating the child's good behavior and attributing that success to a higher power. It is a dual-layered form of praise. It enriches the child's spiritual vocabulary every single time they succeed, humbling the achievement while at the same time celebrating it. Which leads us to Section 5, integrating daily spiritual practices, the prayer routine.
Towards the end of the first text, the narrative shifts explicitly to formal religious practice. The rhyme maps out the exact physical sequence of Salah. Step 1, made wudu. Step 2, raise your hands. Step 3, utter Allahu Akbar. It takes what could be a really intimidating ritual and makes it entirely accessible and memorable. This is literally the choreography of faith. Developmental psychology tells us that combining motor functions with rhythmic audio is hands down the absolute fastest way a toddler learns. By breaking prayer down into simple, manageable, rhythmic steps, the child learns the physical movements through muscle memory long before they'll ever understand the complex theology behind it. Now for our final pillar, Section 6, the power of devotional chants, rhythmic repetition. This brings us to our second source, a traditional nasheed, which is a style of Islamic vocal music. This strips away the narrative of chores entirely to focus purely on immersive spiritual chanting. It's a very different approach, moving deeply into ambient auditory immersion. Listen to the sheer repetition of Hasbi Rabbi Jallallah, which translates to "My Lord is sufficient for me." That repetitive structure creates a soothing ambient soundtrack that drills in the concept of divine sufficiency. It isn't asking the child to perform a chore, it's actively working to regulate their nervous system. It creates this calming, meditative environment that continuously centers the child's baseline emotional state right on a foundation of faith. We also see the phrase Nur Muhammad sallallahu looped continuously alongside the core declaration, La ilaha illallah. This proves that repetition is the ultimate engine for early childhood retention. Think of it kind of like a heartbeat. By stacking these phrases one after the other in an endless melodic cycle, these ambient melodies bypass active processing entirely. The child doesn't even have to try to learn, the audio just goes straight into passive retention. It becomes deeply embedded in their subconscious simply by being part of the room's atmosphere. So the huge takeaway here is that whether a child is learning to brush their teeth, share a toy with their sister, or affirm their faith, the rhythmic looping of these melodies serves as a highly effective, holistic educational tool. The creators clearly understand that you don't teach a toddler through heavy lectures. You teach them through engaging, repetitive, and deeply structured melodies that organize their mind and make learning feel as natural and as inevitable as breathing. As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to consider how the media we passively consume as children fundamentally architectures our reality long into adulthood. If simple, repetitive melodies can so effectively map out both our physical hygiene and our spiritual devotion, what other invisible lifelong habits are we absorbing from the background songs of our childhood? The songs we barely noticed we were memorizing may very well be the foundational bedrock of how we see the world, how we treat our families, and how we organize our daily lives today. Think about the catchy tunes you grew up with. What invisible scripts are still playing in your head?